common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Cats and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And joining us now here on Cats and Cosby is Professor Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law School Professor Emeritus, and also author of The War Against the Jews. Professor Alan Dershowitz, how big of an issue are these protesters going to be? Especially, look, next week, you got the Democratic National Committee, and they were heckling events last night. They heckled a few minutes ago, also at a Biden-Kamala Harris event. They're all over the place.
And they decided who may be the next vice president of the United States. The reason that Shapiro was not selected, I don't know whether the Democrats will win or not, but the reason Shapiro was not selected was the fear that if he was, there would be no Democratic convention. What would happen happened in Chicago. There would be disruptions. Even Bill Clinton and Obama wouldn't be allowed to speak. Everybody would be yelling and screaming, Gaza, Gaza, Gaza. Nobody cares about Darfur, Sudan, or any other places in the world. But if there were a Jewish Zionist on the ticket as vice president, this convention would not have occurred. They were frightened into not picking a Jewish Zionist. That's how much power these useful idiots and bigots have in the Democratic Party today.
You know, the leader of one of these groups, Professor Dershowitz, it's called Coalition of March on the DNC, said if the Democrats don't get elected, it's because they're not listening to this group and this group and this group. Do you think that they will still continue, obviously, to vocalize that they're never going to be happy?
Of course, they would only be happy if not only Israel ceased to exist, but if the United States ceased to exist as a democracy. Because if you scratch an anti-Israel person deep enough, you're going to find an anti-American person as well. And what we're seeing is the takeover of American universities. American universities in the next 10 years are going to be way down in the list of great universities in the world. We're going to stop being a great nation if we allow these kids, these useful idiots, to take over our universities. They've already gotten rid of 5 university presidents, and more are coming. You know, it's so interesting how universities pick their presidents. They're the most uncreative people in the world. When I came to Harvard in 1964, every president of every major university was the same. They were all white male Protestants, no exceptions. Then suddenly things changed, and they were all Jewish men. Then things changed, and they became black women. Then things changed now, and now they're mostly white women. And now we're hearing doctors. Doctors just appointed to head Columbia. Doctor was appointed as the interim head of Harvard, and there are others as well. They're so unoriginal. These university selection committees just follow the herds, follow the lemmings and pick people. And, you know, some of them are DEI appointments. For example, the president of Harvard was clearly a DEI appointment. She was not qualified. She was a plagiarist. She didn't know how to answer a direct question. She had no academic credentials, but she was a black woman. And that was enough for the politically correct corporation at Harvard. Now they're reacting to it. You know, go woke, go broke. And they're seeing that it's not in their interest to be woke, progressive, and politically correct because there are other people in the university aside from the radical noise-making students.
You know, you talked about Columbia University. The president, Manoush Shafiq, resigned just recently. And she says, period of turmoil. Was this a long time coming? I think she's the 4th Ivy League president to resign. And does that really change anything, to your point, Professor Dershowitz?
No, it's symbolic. What we're going to see is more DEI. And until diversity, which is not diversity, it's just more blacks, it has nothing to do with intellectual diversity. Until we see the dismantling of DEI, we're going to see the death of universities. And I don't think we're going to see the dismantling of DEI. We're going to see some slowness in the progress of DEI. It won't be as influential as it used to be, but universities are still going to remain propaganda mills. And they're turning out our future leaders, and our future leaders are unprincipled and biased and filled with bigotry, and we're going to see more protests. As I said, you won't see a single protest about the genocide that's going on in Darfur and the Sudan, about the actual starvation where 2.5 million people, according to reports, may die of starvation in Gaza, they're missing dessert and maybe a third course. But there's no starvation or famine in Gaza. But there is real starvation. But let me tell you, black lives don't matter to black leaders except if they're taken by white people. If you have black people killing black people, whether it's in Chicago or whether it's in Sudan, they don't give a damn. They only want to use Black Lives Matter as a vehicle for making their racial proclamations. But they couldn't care less about the black people of Africa dying of real genocide. They want to focus only on Israel because it has nothing to do with the Palestinians. It has everything to do with the fact that Israel is the nation state of the Jewish people. And these are people who are filled with hatred of Jews.
Professor Alan Dershowitz, what does it mean if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, if they get elected to the White House? Do these protesters, who are often spewing just horrible, hateful things towards Israel, towards America, will they get safe cover? Will there be sort of a message of appeasement towards them? And could they even get worse?
Without a doubt. And one of the excuses Shapiro wasn't picked, it was an excuse because he wasn't picked because he was a Jewish Zionist, but one of the excuses was that he was tough on the violent demonstrators, on the ones who engaged in criminal conduct. And, the mob doesn't want people who are tough on the demonstrators. They want people who are tough on Israel. So, if the Harris ticket is elected, we're going to see more protests, less effective law enforcement, and we're going to see a turning away from Israel, a turning away from Western values, a turning away from Judeo-Christian values. It will be very dangerous, and that's why so many people who support Israel, Jewish and Christian alike, are looking hard. Many of them Democrats like me who have voted for years and years and years for the Democrats, saying, can we pull the lever for Democrats this time around? I haven't made up my mind who I'm voting against because that's what it will be. It will be a vote against rather than a vote for. But I want to wait, until early November. I want to see what the Democrats do if Iran attacks Israel, whether they'll really keep their promise to have Israel's back. I want to see how they perform in a range of issues, and I want to hear what the Republicans have to say. I wish Donald Trump would stop attacking people individually and start talking more about the merits of his 4 years in office. I think he would improve his status if he got less focused on personalities and name calling and more focused on the issues.
And President Trump was, of course, very good with Israel. He continues to obviously be. I think about his huge achievements with the Abraham Accords and so much more. Professor Alan Dershowitz, really great to have you here on Cats and Cosby. Thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.